This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
And I'm Heather Branch here with John to ask him his ideas on ways that you can better prepare for your financial future. RetirementSolutionRadio.com is where you can go to begin your own conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. Again, that's RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Thinking about the things that we do ourselves on a micro level, working to better prepare ourselves, especially for our retirement years. Thinking of 401ks. It feels like everybody's got one. We don't all have one, but they're so popular. It seems like everybody's got one, John. However, I mean, you tell us, how often do you encounter people that are smart people, worked very hard, saved all their life to their 401k, and they really have no idea what that 401k is all about?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I know that we've had this conversation. The very first job that I ever had, and this was with one of the largest investment banks on the planet.
Yeah.
They basically had me in a room with human resources, and I knew most of the benefits, but they basically threw me this prospectus thing and said, hey, yeah, just go ahead and fill this out on how you want to invest the money and tell us how much you want to put away, and we're good to go. That was it. And this was with one of the largest investment banks in the United States of America, and I have to laugh about that
as
now.
a financial person in this world,
sure,
having more knowledge than most.
It was my very first job, and even though I've been doing this for a long time, I really hadn't done it a lot then. So that was really kind of one of the very first 401k, I guess, structures I had actually ever seen.
Yeah.
And so when I'm thinking about it now, the things that I elected were horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I didn't keep that job for my whole life and potentially made that, it didn't ruin my future. But 401ks are very, very difficult to understand. And a lot of people, even if you've had them for the last 35, 40 years, there's a great chance you don't know exactly what those investments are doing, what you're paying in fees for those suckers, which is probably one of the biggest issues that I have with a lot of 401ks. And lastly, just kind of what options are available. So even if you know what you're invested in, and even if you know what it costs, do you even know if that's the best stuff that you have available to you outside of that? Those are the three biggest issues that I run into with most people, and most folks, even if they think they have a really good handle on it, Heather, they don't.
I know.
And it's sad because it's their life savings. Often it's their life savings outside of their home that's in these accounts, and they just don't know enough about them. So the good thing is that if anyone ever does want to come talk to us, we're going to tell you exactly those answers. Okay. But the main thing is that what your other alternatives might be. Now, there are some 401ks out there that, frankly, I think they do a great job, and they're very good. They give you a lot of flexibility. They're very low cost. And frankly, you can defer a good amount of money in those things. But as much as I hate to say it, I'm saying less than 10% are actually good. And that's kind of the sad part.
All right, well, let's talk further then about the idea of what we don't know, because one of the big 401k rules that we get told, that we hear very often, is that the more you put in, the better, and we should be maxing out our 401k each year as much as if you can max it out, do it. No brainer. However, there was an article on motleyfool.com, financial website, that saying that this notion, this idea is actually overrated.
Yeah.
And that there may be better places for us to put our money. So do you agree with this idea, and what other places should we then be looking for?
So overall, I do agree that the Motley Fool was right in saying, hey, putting all that money in that 401k, that may not be the best thing for you. But let's talk about really the biggest issues. So I'm going to give you two simple rules that we should always consider, no matter what kind of 401k you have. Okay. Number one, you should always get what the employer is going to match. It is the only quote unquote free money that's left in the system, right? It used to be years and years ago, they paid in for a pension for us as workers, but those are gone. So now we have to pay in, and the only way to get extra money is if that employer matches us. So if they give you some kind of a match, I want everyone to take dollar for dollar whatever they're going to match.
I heard somebody say it's literally the only free money in the world.
That literally, I mean, right now that is. And so you have to realize, though, is it really free if you got to clock in and sit in your cubicle and, have a 20-minute lunch break or whatever they typically do for us to be able to earn that quote unquote free money? It may not be worth that. But the idea is that we have to do that always. Secondarily, the second thing, we always want to save as much money as we can if we want to retire one day. Okay? Because there are not enough things that are going on out there in the world that can provide for us income and resources for us to use if we don't pay in. So Heather, we were even talking earlier about how Social Security may not have enough money to give us dollar for dollar what they promised that they were going to give us already. Right. So if we're not saving money correctly and not saving enough of it, we just may have to prolong retirement until, frankly, we wanted to have already quit working. No one that I know really wants to be forced to work into their mid to late 70s. Now, there's a lot of people I run into that they love working and they want to keep doing that, but notice the difference.
Right.
Want to versus have to. So number one, make sure you get all the free money that your employer is going to give you. But number two, I want you to save as much money as you can. I just don't know if the 401k is the right vehicle for that. Okay. Now, one of the things that is favorable, because if you kind of know, you can only put so many dollars a year into IRAs or Roth IRAs. Now, in 2023, for your 401k, you can maximize up to $22,500. So in that regard, that's pretty good. There are not very many other investments that we can get a tax deferral on, put the money away for that amount of money, $22,500. Right. And if you're over 50 this year in 2023, we can put up to almost $30,000 away. So in that regard, that can be very positive for some folks who maybe we weren't able to save in the front end as we were raising the kids and trying to get our careers in check and things like that. It may be good to make those catch-ups later in our career to do that. But outside of being able to save more in them and outside of getting the employer match, there are tremendous opportunities that every one of us have that aren't nearly as rigid. They're so much more flexible. There are things last year, and I know, Heather, because I probably have seen a little over 217. The reason I know that is because my interns told me how many 401ks that I reviewed over the last year. Yeah. Almost 230 different, 217 different 401ks that I looked at.
Really?
And amazingly enough, last year, the majority of those accounts were way down in value, way down, no matter what those clients had invested in. Because unless you were in a fixed, stable value money market type fund, almost every single bond alternative lost money in those accounts. Almost every single stock fund lost money in those accounts. And that hurt a lot of people. Now, the reason I say that is because if you had your money in other assets outside of a 401k, there were a lot of alternatives that not only did not lose any money last year, you may have been slightly positive. And the crazy thing is that most 401ks do not have enough alternatives or enough options to be able to do that. And so one of the biggest things to understand is there's number one, hey, get the free money. Number two, make sure you're saving as much money as you can, but you want alternatives. And you can typically get better alternatives in your own self-directed IRAs or Roth IRAs or trading accounts when you're doing a comparison.
So ideally, then, we want to get that money where we can get it, but then take what we would have been putting into a 401k and invest it ourselves?
Absolutely. Okay. And another big question, and it's why I always think it's very wise to consider working with a fiduciary advisor, is because a lot of times the taxation, some people don't need the tax break now. They actually would be better off putting that money in a Roth or another tax-free vehicle so that they're going to pay no taxes in the future. Now, why would that be the case? Well, if you don't have a very high income now, but you're expecting to have a much higher income in the future, and or you're going to have a really nice pension, and or you might sell a business or things like that. All of those reasons would really make it make more sense to not get a tax break now and put it in a 401k and instead get tax-free growth for the rest of your life. But that's one of those things you really kind of need to figure out when you know how much money you can save and what you want to invest it in. Then what vehicle should you invest it in? A tax-deferred account or a tax-free account?
This is hard stuff, though, Don. This is not easy for all of us to figure out.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. Just like me, when they just kind of threw that 401k prospectus at me when that first day of work or that second day of work, no different. A lot of other people have had that same thing happen, and they've really never checked under the hood to verify that the spark plugs don't need to be replaced and that, frankly, it's the right car for their needs. So give our team a call. Let us help you do the analysis, because I promise you one thing. If you come into our office and look at the analysis, there is no way that you're not going to gain a tremendous understanding of what you own and all of your available opportunities in the future.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Jonathan Hicks, insurance license number 548962.